Good morning to the CTNI. My name is Yodedra. Metric number is SC2382. Today, I will present my individual assignment for Cost Accounting Information System, ACT 3513. The title of individual assignment is Leveraging Digital Skills for Relational Database from Problem Solving in Accounting Information System. For the task 1 of individual assignment is virtual problem solving. I will review problem 4.5 on page 147 of the textbook, and I also will independently answer question A to L using Microsoft Access, ensuring clarity and accuracy in my responses. Going to the task 2 of individual assignment is data entry into Microsoft Access. So for now, I will start showing key in the data in table 417 into Microsoft Access. Firstly, I will key the data of customer. So I will create a table. I will create a table, rename the table with right key. Create a set, it can rename the table. So I key customer. In the first column, I will use shortcuts to key the data of customer ID. Second column, I will use shortcuts to key customer name. Third, I will use shortcuts to key data of city. Fourth, I will use shortcuts to key the data of state. And lastly, I will use number to key data of credit limit. After that keying data of the customer part, I will recheck again the data is correctly keying or not. Next, I will key the data of inventory table. So I will create a new table and I will right key to rename the table and save. So the first one is item ID. I use the shortcut to key the item ID. Next, I use shortcuts to key the description. Next, I use number to key the standard cost. Next, I use currency to key the list price. And next, I use number to key quantity on hand. After done key the data, I will recheck again the data with the table for dash 17. So thirdly, I will key the data of sales table. So I will create the new table and set as sales. So firstly, I will use the shortcuts to key the data of invoice. Next, I will use date and time to key the data of sales date. Next, I will using the shortcuts to key the data of salesperson. Next, I will use the shortcuts also to key the customer ID. And last, I will use the currency to key the amount. So I will recheck again the data is correctly or not. So lastly, I will key the data about the sales inventory. So I will create a new table also and set as sales inventory. The first, I will use the short text to key the invoice. And then I will use the short text to key the item ID. I will use the number to key the quantity. And then I will using the currency to key the amount, sell price. When the number of invoice is same is next row, it cannot continue key in. So I need go to cancel the primary key in the first row data key in. So in here, I need to change to the different number first. And I go to the design. I go to the design view, create the invoice row, and uncreate the primary key. So I go back to the datasheet view. Before go back, I need to save the changes. So I can continue keying the next data which the invoice number is then like that. So I will recheck again the data is incorrect or not. So this is the four tables in the table 417. After done key all the data from table 417 in Microsoft Access, I will start to solve the question. I will using the design view to answer all the questions. So question A is about for which items are there at least 100 units in quantity on hand? So for this question, I will create the query design and I set as question 1. Question A. Just using the inventory table, choose the field of description and quantity on hand. In the column of quantity on hand, at the row of criteria, I will type 100 or more than 100 because the question is now at least 100 units in quantity on hand. So after that, I will run the query and the answer will show in the datasheet view. So the answer is blender 200, toaster 300, mixer 250, radio 100, 300. So the question B is what were the item numbers, price, and quantity of each item sold on invoice number 103. So I will, for this question, I will create the query design and I will set as question B. So I will using the sales inventory table and choose the item ID and sale price, quantity, and invoice. So I will unclick the show of invoice because question is not required for this field. But in the column of invoice, the criteria I will key 103. Because the question is only want to see invoice number 103. So I will run the query and the answer will show in datasheet field. So the answer is item ID 1010, 1015, and 1025. Question C is which customers make purchase from Martinez? Provide customer name and salesperson. Show customer names only once, even if they purchase from Martinez multiple times. So for this question, I will create the query design and rename the query design as question C. So I will using the customer and sales table. I will use the customer name from the customer and the salesperson from sales. And I will create the totals. So in the column of salesperson at the criteria row, I will type Martinez because the question is specific for the Martinez only. So I will run the query and the answer will show in datasheet view. So the answer is Aroka, Smith, and Zero. Next, question D is list invoice, salesperson, customer name, and amount for invoice whose amount is more than $1,500. Sort the amount from largest to smallest. So for this question, create the design, current design, and set as question D. Using the customer and sales table, choose the invoice, sales date, salesperson from sales table, and customer name from customer, and amount from sales table. Okay, in the column of amount, the row of criteria key more than 1,500. So the row of sort choose descending, largest to smaller, descending. So I will run the query and the answer will show in the datasheet view. So the answer is 107 invoice of 107 and invoice of 101. The question E is about list invoice, item ID, description, sale price, list price, quantity, and compute the extension, sale price, multiple quantity for all items. So where the sale price is different than the list price. Sort by item ID in descending order. So for this question, I will create the query design and I will rename the query design. Question E. So I am using the inventory table and sales table. Choose the field of invoice, item ID from sales inventory table. Choose the field of description from inventory table. Choose the field of sale price from sales inventory table. Choose the field of list price from inventory table, and choose the field of quantity from sales inventory table. And for now, in the question also require extension, that is sales amount. So create the blank column in the next column of quantity. Create the builder. In query design table, type sales amount. Choose the database file and double click on the sale price from the sales inventory. And I will put the symbol multiple. And next, I will choose the database file and double click on quantity from the sales inventory. And click OK. In this question, I also need to know the difference between sale price and list price, but not need to show in answer. For this, I go to next blank column, click builder in the query design table, type difference. So choose the database file and double click on the sale price from the sales inventory. And put the symbol of minus, and then choose the database file and double click on the list price from the inventory table. Click OK. So I untick the show row in here because no need to present in the final answer. So in the row of criteria also, I will type more than less than 0. Less than more than 0. In the column of item ID, I will choose the row of sort, which list sending as required in the question. So I will run the query. The answer will show in datasheet. So the answer is invoice 108 for item ID 1045 and 1025. Next, I will go into the question F. Question F is compute the profit margin for each item sold. Calculate the profit margin as sale price minus standard cost divided sale price. List invoice, sell date, item ID, sale price, quantity, and compute profit margin. Sort by profit margin in descending order. For this question, I will create the query design and set as question F. Using the sales inventory and inventory table, choose the field of invoice. Sell date from sales table, choose the field of item ID, sale price, and quantity from sales inventory table. For now, integration also require complete profit margin. So create the brand column. In the next column of quantity, create the builder. In query design table, type profit margin. And round. In the column, choose the database file and double click on sale price from the sales inventory table. And put minus. Choose the database file and double click on the standard cost from the inventory table. And then put the divider symbol and choose the database and double click on the sale price of the sales inventory table. So click the OK. Put the and then click OK. In the row of sort, choosing descending as required from question. So I will run the query, and the answer will show in datasheet view. So this is the answer of question F. Question G is compute the profit for each line of the invoice. Calculate the profit as sale price minus standard cost multiple quantity. List invoice, sell date, item ID, sale price, quantity, and compute profit. Sort by invoice in ascending, then profit in descending order. So for this question, create the query design also. Create the query design and set a question G. So I will using the sales inventory and inventory table. Choose the field of invoice and sell date from sales table. Choose the field of item ID, sale price, quantity from sales inventory table. For now, the question also require complete profit. So create the brand column in the next column of quantity. Create the builder in query design. Type profit. Choose the database file and double click in the sale price. In the sale price form, from sales inventory, and then put the minus symbol and choose the database file and double click on the standard cost from the inventory table. And multiple, choose the database file and double click on the quantity from the sales inventory. And click OK. In the row of sort in column of invoice, I will choosing the SND as required from question. Column of profit margin, I will choose descending as required from question. So I will run the query and the answer will show in the datasheet view. So this is the answer of question G. Next, we're going to the question hash. Question hash is how many sales transactions were made in October. Name your output column, number of sales. So for this question, I need to do two queries. First query, I will find out the sale date in October because the question is required October only. Second query is I will sum the number of sales using the data in first query. So first query, I will click the query design. And I will save as question hash part 1. Question hash part 1. So I will using the sales table, choose the field of sales date, and type in the criteria, I will type between October 1, 2018 and October 31, 2018. So I will run the query and the answer will show in the datasheet view. And I must save this query first before I go into the question hash part 2. Is the finalized answer in part 2. So I will create the data, create query design, save as question hash part 2. So I will use the table of queries question hash part 1. So in here I will click the builder and I will type number of cells on from the database of query question hash part 1. Click OK and then I will run query. I will continue sharing. I will set as question H part 2, and I will choosing the table of question H part 1. In here, I will type number of cells count from the database, everyone knows that, and I click OK and run. So the answer will be 7 days of number of cells. So next, I will go into the question I is how many customers live in Arizona? List the state and current and count of customers. So for this question, I will create the current design. Save as question I. I will visit the customer data and choose the view of state. In the next branch, the builder in query design table type count of customer. State. And click OK. Click the totals in query design table. In the total row of count of customer, choose count. In the criteria of state column, type AZ because it only want the Arizona only for the question. So I will run the query and the answer will show in the datasheet view. So the answer is 3. Next is question J is how many customers live in each state. List the state and count of customers. Sort the list alphabetically by state. So I will, for this question, click the query design. Rename the query with right key, click save. Question J and click OK. Use question J. Using the customer table, choose the view of state. In the next branch, click the builder. In query design table and type count of customer. State. And click OK. Click the totals in query design table. In the row total of current count of customer, select count. In the row of sort on state column, select ascending because the question is required alphabetically. So choose ascending. So run the query and the answer will show in datasheet view. So this is the answer for question J. Next is question K. Question K is how much did each salesperson sell based on sales amount? List salesperson and total amount. Sort from largest total amount to smallest. For this question, create a query design and save as question K. Using sales table, choose the salesperson. In the next brain, click the builder in query design. Type total amount. Click OK. Click totals in query design table. In the row total of column total amount, select sum. In the same column, choose the sort in descending status. So run the query and the answer will show in data sheet view. So this is the answer of question K. And lastly is question L. Question L is how many units of each item were sold? List item ID, description, and total sold. Sort on total sold in ascending order. For this question, create a query design. Save as question L. I will be using the inventory, sales inventory table. Choose the field of item ID and description from inventory table. In the next brain, create the builder. In query design table, type total sold. Sum. Choose the database file and double click in the quantity from the sales inventory. And click OK. Click totals in query design tables. In the row total of column total sold, select expansion. On the same column, choose the sort in ascending status. Run query and the answer will show in datasheet view. So the answer is in here. That's all from my individual assignment presentation. Thank you, Dr. Siti.